You've seen these ships before. The giant ones, stacked 4 stories high with steel boxes, sliding silently across the horizon, nearly a quarter of a mile long from bow to stern. You've probably watched one glide under a bridge and never once thought about who was inside it. But right now, on a ship somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there are about 24 people. And they've been living on that ship for months. No land, no streets, no way off until the next port. Now here's the part most people get completely wrong. When you picture where those people sleep, you imagine something grim. A cramped metal bunk, a windowless box bolted to a wall, rattling with every wave. Something closer to a prison cell than a home. And for most of maritime history, you would have been right. But a modern crew cabin on an ocean-going cargo ship is not what you think it is. Some of them are nicer than the hotel room you stayed in last summer. There are 3 layers to this story. The first is what these rooms actually look like and why they're built that way. The second is the hidden engineering that keeps a bedroom livable while it's floating on top of waves the size of buildings. And the third is something almost nobody expects, an answer that comes from the sailors themselves. By the end of this video, you'll never look at a passing ship the same way again. So let's start with the obvious question. Why would a cargo company spend real money making a bedroom comfortable on a vessel whose entire job is hauling steel boxes? It seems like wasted effort. But it isn't, and the reason is simple: math. A trucker spends 1 night in his cab. A sailor spends 4 to 9 months on his ship, sometimes longer. That cabin isn't a place to crash for the night. It's his entire home, his bedroom, his office, and his only private space on Earth for the length of his contract. And a person who can't rest properly for 9 months is a person who makes mistakes. On a ship carrying tens of thousands of tons of cargo through open ocean, a tired mistake can cost a life. So the cabin isn't a luxury, it's a safety system. And here's what that actually looks like. On most modern merchant ships, every single crew member gets their own private cabin, not a shared bunk room. Their own room, with a door that locks. Inside, there's a single bed, a desk, a wardrobe, a small sofa or chair, a porthole or window on the better ships, and here's the part that surprises people: a private bathroom. An ensuite, toilet, sink, and a hot shower, just for them. That's the standard for the lowest-ranking sailor on board. The officers get more. A chief engineer or a first mate might have a separate day room connected to the bedroom, like a small apartment. And the captain? The captain's quarters can include a sitting room, a private office, a dining area, and a bedroom, all in one suite near the top of the ship with the best views on the vessel. But a nice room means nothing if you can't actually live in it. And that's where the real engineering begins, because keeping a bedroom comfortable on the open Pacific is a problem most people have never even considered. Start with the most obvious one. The ship moves, constantly. Out in the open ocean, swells can run 20, 30, even 40 feet high. A vessel does not just bob on them. It rolls side to side, it pitches front to back, and in the worst conditions, it does both at once. So, how does anyone sleep through that? The first answer is sheer size. A fully loaded container ship can weigh over 200,000 tons. That mass acts like an anchor against the motion of the water. A small boat gets tossed by every wave. A ship this big plows straight through them, and most swells barely register inside the hull. The ocean has to work hard to move something that heavy. The second answer is hidden deep in the ship: ballast tanks. These are enormous compartments that the crew floods with seawater or empties out to control how the ship sits in the water. By shifting thousands of tons of water around the hull, They can trim the vessel, lower its center of gravity, and dampen the worst of the rolling. It is the same idea as a tightrope walker holding a long pole, just scaled up to the size of a building. And the third answer is where the bedrooms actually are. The crew accommodation block, the tall white tower you see rising above the deck, isn't placed randomly. It's positioned to keep the living quarters away from the worst of the motion and the heat of the engine. The cabins are climate-controlled year-round, because this same ship that crosses the freezing North Pacific might be loading cargo on the equator a month later. The air conditioning has to handle both. Then there's the water. You can't exactly run a garden hose out to the middle of the ocean, so the ship makes its own fresh water, pulling in seawater and running it through evaporators and reverse osmosis systems that strip out the salt. That hot shower in the crew cabin started as ocean water just a few hours earlier. The ship is, in every real sense, a floating city that generates its own power, its own water, and its own climate, thousands of miles from the nearest building. But here's the question nobody asks. What happens when all of that isn't enough? Because the ocean does not always cooperate. Picture this. It's 2 in the morning, somewhere in the North Pacific in winter. A storm system the size of a country has moved in, and the swells have climbed to 35 feet. The ship is no longer plowing smoothly through the water. Now it's rolling hard, 15 to 20 degrees to each side, and every few minutes, the bow drops into a trough and slams into the next wave, with a boom you feel in your chest. In your cabin, the comfortable bedroom turns on you. Anything not tied down becomes a projectile. The chair slides across the floor and crashes into the wall. The drawers fly open. If you did not lash your belongings down before the weather hit, they are now airborne. And sleep? You do not sleep. You wedge yourself into the bunk, jam a life jacket or a pillow under one side of the mattress to keep from rolling out, and you brace. Every experienced sailor knows the routine. Before a storm, you secure for sea. Everything gets stowed, strapped, and locked. Coffee cups go in deep holders. The galley stops cooking hot food. You learn to move through the ship with one hand always holding something solid, because a fall down a steel staircase on a rolling ship can end a career or worse. The comfortable bedroom is real. But the ocean reserves the right to take it back for a few nights at a time, and the crew plans for that every single voyage. So after all of that, the rolling, the storms, the months away from home, the isolation so complete that for 2 weeks the nearest other human beings might be on a plane flying 7 miles overhead, here is what surprises everyone. Ask a sailor who's spent years at sea whether he sleeps better in his cabin or in a hotel on land, and a lot of them will tell you the cabin, the ship. And the reasons are not what you'd guess. The first is the motion itself. On a normal day, the gentle, slow roll of a ship at sea rocks you the way a parent rocks a baby. Sailors describe falling asleep faster and deeper than they ever do on solid ground. The very thing that sounds unbearable to you becomes the best sleep aid they've ever known. The second is the sound. Deep in the ship, the main engine produces a low, constant hum that never stops, never changes, never surprises you. It's white noise on an industrial scale. No traffic, no neighbors, no doors slamming down a hallway. Just that endless, steady drone that drowns out everything else and tells your brain that the ship is alive and running exactly as it should. And the third is something harder to explain. Out there, with no land, no signal worth speaking of for years, and now sometimes a thin satellite internet link that connects them home, life gets simple. There's the work, the meals, the small crew you see every day, and the room that's entirely yours. For some people, that stripped-down world is the calmest they ever feel. The most isolated place a person can sleep on this planet doesn't always produce the most miserable nights. Sometimes it produces the most peaceful ones. So the next time you watch one of those enormous ships slide past the horizon, remember this. Somewhere inside that wall of steel, behind a locked cabin door, someone is in their own private room, rocked by the ocean, wrapped in the hum of the engine, sleeping better than you did last night. Now I want to hear from you. Could you do it? 4 months at sea, no way off, in a single cabin in the middle of the ocean? Tell me yes or no down in the comments. And wherever you're watching from right now, drop your country in the comments. I read every one. If you learned something today, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.